Good morning. I'll be reading through Genesis 1:27 through 2:3. So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky and over every living creature that moves on the ground." Then God said, "I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit and seed in it. They will be yours for food, and to all the beasts of the earth, and all the birds in the sky, and all the creatures that move along the ground, everything that has the breath of life in it. I give every green plant for food," and it was so. God says all that he has made, and it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the sixth day. Thus the heavens and the earth were completed in all their vast array. By the seventh day, God had finished the work he had been doing. So on the seventh day, he rested from all his work. Then God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all his work of creating that he had done.
Good morning. It's this exact moment where I'm regretting the fact that I said yes to Brian. Oh, well, it's good to see you. A happy Father's Day as well. I just want to get this started with, I am so tired, like all the time. I wake up, I'm tired. I go to sleep, I'm tired. I sleep, and I'm tired while I'm sleeping. Like just all day, it's pervasive. And my four biggest blessings are the biggest culprits for why I am tired. Because they, for some reason, don't like this idea of sleep. It's like they want to fight you tooth and nail everywhere. I remember this one time, and maybe you guys remember when your kids are younger, and you go to the zoo, and they're still having nap time. And you do so good in the morning, if they're a one nap child, you do so good up in the morning until 5 minutes after nap time. And then it's a complete meltdown. And Izzy specifically, and if you know Izzy, this Tori Rochu, 1:05 on the dot, loses her ever-loving mind. She is just drooling, eyes rolling in the back of the head. We can't console her, she's crying. And the one thing she needs is sleep, but she's fighting that. And so we're trying, like I said, we're giving her snacks, we're holding her, we're playing with her, we're showing her all the zoo animals, and nothing is helping because the one thing she needs the most is rest. What I want to do is ship my kids 20 years in the future. Jenny and I will stay in 2021, they can enjoy 2041, and just live a life 1 week as an adult. And then come back and tell me how much you don't want to have nap time or how much you don't want to have quiet time. But I think with that in mind, as we get older, not much really changes with that regard. Even if I didn't have kids, I'd find things to fill my day with. I'd come home from work and I'd find a basketball league, or I'd find more football or more basketball or more time with friends. And we have this idea that we need to fill our schedules, and we leave ourselves empty all the time. So from kids all the way up to now, we find ourselves super busy and not resting. And I want to remind you of the idea of rest today, right here in Genesis 1, in the beginning of 2. Truth statement. God is a God of good, and he wants us to rest. God is a God of good, and he wants us to rest. So my question for you is, do you trust this story enough to believe that he wants you to rest? I'll be breaking this up into 3 sections. I'm very linear, so hopefully for my linear learners, this is a great presentation for you, and if not, I'm sorry in advance. Truth number 1, God is a God who wants us to trust this story. Truth number 2. Genesis 1 and the beginning of 2 is more than just a scientific lab report on creation. Now listen, it is more than that. I am not saying it is not that, so don't misconstrue that, please. It is beyond that. Truth number 3, God is a God who wants us to rest. Point number 1, God is a God who wants us to trust the story, specifically to the Old Testament. God, from the very beginning, is looking for a people who are going to trust the plans that he has for them. Trust what I have in store from you. From the beginning, the very first people that we had, Adam and Eve. Genesis 2, verse 15. God says you have all this, and Adam, you are to work and to keep this garden, and you can have of everything from this garden except the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Everything else is yours. You have dominion over all of this. Just do not eat the fruit of this tree. The first chance for our people to trust the story. And as it is written, that sneaky serpent comes up and is talking to Eve. Which, can we talk about the fact that it's a snake talking? Like, I don't think we think about that enough. Like, I know this is early Bible and things are a little weird then, but I can't imagine a snake talking to me. Besides the point, serpent comes up, and they have this back and forth on the parsing of the exact words that God says. And it's the moment to trust the story. Did they trust God enough to not eat of the fruit of the tree? I think we all know the answer. And that's why we're here today is where we are. No. Eve was deceived by the snake, ate of the fruit, and passed on, and Adam was as well. Very first people he wanted to trust the story. They did not. We can move on even a little further down the Bible and talk to Moses. Moses, beautiful baby, saved down the river. And he's saved and he gets to grow up in his household with his mom, and God has blessed him from the very moments of his birth. And he gives him an opportunity. And he says to him, but God says to Moses, you are going to deliver your people to the promised land. And here, I feel like God, knowing that Moses might be a little apprehensive, says, I'll give you 3 signs to give to the people to let them know that you are the one that I'm choosing. First sign, take the staff, throw it on the ground, it becomes a snake again. Interesting correlation. Second sign, if they still don't believe you, put your hand on the fold of your garment, take it out, you'll have a skin disease, and it'll look like snow. And if they still do not believe you after all that, I'll give you the third sign. Take the water from the river, throw it on the ground, or pour it on the ground, and it'll turn into blood. 3 signs. And the very first thing Moses has to say to that is, you know what, I'm not sure they'll still believe me. I'm not good with my words. I don't think I'm the one for you. Moses not trusting the story. And God even specifically calls out Moses even later in Numbers 20, when Moses is supposed to provide the water from the rock. And God specifically says to Moses to strike the rock, and the water will flow out for your people. Pretty simple instructions. However, as we see, Moses comes, and he has his own little interstitial before he hits the rock, and he strikes the rock twice. And this is how God responds to Moses. Because you did not trust in me enough to honor me as holy in the sight of the Israelites, you will not bring this community into the land that I gave them. God seeking people to trust him. We've got Abraham and Sarah, and they're traveling. You tell these people that you're not my wife, that you're my sister. Plague to the king's household. Samson, don't tell Delilah about your hair. Keep that to yourself. Story after story after story of a people, with the exception of Noah, who mostly follows, who did not trust the story. How does that apply to us today? We use these examples to better serve our life and to seek a God who is looking for us to trust the story he has for us. To trust the plans that he has for you, and to trust him in every situation. So if we trust this story, as we see a whole testament of folks who do not, What do we do with that? Well, we'll jump into Genesis, and we'll jump into point number 2, which is Genesis 1 and the beginning of 2 are more than just a lab report on creation. Again, it is a lab report on creation, but it is more than that. Now, if you're familiar with Rob Bell and his Everything Spiritual talk, the translations of the Hebrew word are heavily used from that, but I think if you do know that, the ending that we come to is a little bit different. So I will read from the text starting in Genesis 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." Okay, we have a creator, the Hebrew word of bara. We also have the Spirit of God, and we also have a God who has word, a God of 3 parts. Interesting allusion in the very first verses of the Bible. We have a God who has 3 parts. Now let's jump into this creation narrative. And this will be sort of a call and a response. And I will say something, and then when you know the answer, I want you all to shout it out to me, okay? Day 1, God separates the light from the darkness, and it was good. All right. Day 2, he separates the water from water, and the water above is called sky, and it was good. Day 3, he separates the water from below and creates the land and the seas, and it was good. All right, you're still with me. Day 4, he fills the lightness and the darkness with the sun and the moon and the stars, and it was good. Day 5, he fills the land with the water, the fish in the sky, and the birds, and it was good. You're still with me. Day 6, he fills the land with the animals and the people, and it was very good. 5 out of 6 is not bad. That's a passing grade. It was very good. Day 7, and we'll get back to the point, the word that I'm going to emphasize in a little bit. By day 7, he had completed his work, and he blessed the 7th day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all the work of creating he had done. Why is this more than just a lab report on creation? Well, if you're reading this as a 21st century reader, there are some things that don't make sense to us. First thing, as we understand it, day 3, there's plants and vegetation, but no sun until the 4th day. Makes you wonder. And again, I'm not saying that's not how this happened. I'm saying it should make you wonder, right? As we understand days, it's how we revolve around the sun and the moon. Well, there's no sun until day 4, days 3. It makes you wonder how day 1 through 3 happen as we understand it. Then there's this whole idea of it was evening and it was morning, it was evening, it was morning. Again, as 21st century, that's backward. 21st century reader, that's backwards to us. We go morning to evening. That makes a lot more sense as an early Bible reader. And lastly, the repeating of it was good, it was good, it was good, it was good. Well, what do we use, or what are songs or things we use now that use repeated words? This idea of poetry. A lot of poems have rhyme scheme, repeated words, things of that nature. When you think a little bit, this makes us wonder what these discrepancies in our mind can lead to. So that made me think, well, is there more that I should be getting out of this than just the fact that he's laid out how the world was created? Well, yes. I will talk first about the fact that we are lazy. We are super lazy. Think about this. How many of you guys have study Bibles? Okay, there's a few of us who have study Bibles. Because when we read the word, sometimes it's a lot easier for somebody to give us what we're supposed to get out of that rather than figuring out what we're supposed to get out of it. Or if you're doing a small group and you're doing a video series or you're reading a book, you look for a study guide. We, as Western readers, seek most of the time for the answers to be given to us. However, ancient Eastern readers and writers did not have those tools. So what they had was, as a writer, different literary structures to hide certain meanings or treasures within the text that if you're paying attention, you'd be able to see. And one of the big ones throughout the whole Bible is a chiasm. And I know Brian has talked about this before, so I'll just give a very simple illustration. Chiasm, like I said, is just a literary structure. It's how the words or the phrases are written up. So, for example, you have what would be a mirror point. So you list your point A, your point B, your point C, and then again, right after you list point B or point C, then you would list your point A, point B, point C. Then there's another one in which, as you can see on the screen, there's this treasure. You are funneling things down to the specific thing you want your people to see. So you list out your point A, your point B, your point C, and you'd have your point D. That's the point that you really want the people to focus on, and then you would repeat your point C, point B, point A. And you're thinking, maybe, as I thought, Anthony, where would we find a chiasm in the Bible? Well, let me tell you, right here in the creation narrative, we have both forms of chiasm within the creation narrative. Day 1, he separates the light from darkness. Day 4, he fills the light and darkness with the sun and the moon and the stars. Point A, point A. Point B, on day 2, he separates the light from the water, and the water above is called sky. Day 5, he fills the water and the fish and the sky and the birds, and it was very good. Point B, point B. Point C, he separates the water below and creates the land and the seas. And then day 6, he fills the land with the animals and the people. First example of the chiasm. And I will finish the second example in a little bit, but if you're thinking, Anthony, you're off the wall here, there's more to this, okay? Speaking specifically to the Hebrew, are there any patterns? And you can see this a little bit in English as well. We have a God who has 3 parts. Are there any patterns of 3? Well, yes. We have a creator. In the Hebrew is bara. Bara is the word in the Hebrew is used 3 times in the beginning, in the middle, and in the end. And then at the very end, it is used almost in 3 successive times. Patterns of 3. Another pattern of 3. 3 days where he separates, 3 days in which he fills. We have 7 days in the creation narrative. Are there patterns of 7? Well, absolutely there's patterns of 7. In the Hebrew, verse 1, 7 words. In Hebrew, verse 2 is 14 words, 7 times 2. The word earth occurs 21 times, 7 times 3. There are 35 words in the 7th verse, and the word God is used 35 times. Well, naturally, as I have found out, if there are patterns of 3 and there are patterns of 7, then the question you should ask yourself, if there are patterns of 10. Well, yes, there are. The phrase to make occurs 10 times, and the phrase according to its kind happens 10 times. This is more than just a creation narrative. This is beautiful biblical poetry that we can't see because we don't know the original language. But back to that second chiasm. The second chiasm, which is A, B, C, and you get to the point D. We start with, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and there was without form and in vast darkness. The Hebrew, tohu vavohu, chaotic nothingness. We start with chaotic nothingness, then we end with day 7. In day 7, he has nothing left to complete. He has finished the world. There is nothing left for him to do. We start with nothing. We end with the idea of completeness, or we end with nothing. And then in the Hebrew, the very middle word, if you were to fold this creation narrative right in half, the middle word in the Hebrew is moad. Moad being translated as seasons or appointed time. And you're thinking, okay, so if there's a middle, the middle word is moad, then what verse is that in? Well, and now it would be verse 14. And verse 14 says, and God said, let there be lights in the expanse of the heavens to separate the day from the night, and let there be signs and seasons, and for the days and for the years. So we have this middle word, this moad. What's so interesting about moad? Well, moad is one of the 4 words that's translated into Sabbath. Interesting. We start with nothing, we end with nothing left for God to do, and right in the middle, it's moad. It's the idea. It's one of the 12 festivals or reasons that the Jewish folks celebrate, the Shabbat being one of them. God, or you through Moses, has hidden this idea of rest. But in case you don't like that enough, he specifically ends the creation narrative with the seventh day being a day that is blessed because he rested. And we will get to my third and final point. That God is a God who wants us to rest. And I'll start with the Israelite example here. The Israelites were held captive for 430 years by the Egyptians. And what were they for those 430 years? They were slaves. And they were to produce brick and to make things with the brick. Their value was placed in how many bricks they could make. That is the only value that the Israelites had to the Egyptians. How many bricks can you make, and what can you do with these bricks? Think about that. And we have a God who, in the very first words of the Bible, shows how awesome and powerful he is, right? I've created these in 7 days. And everything that I have created was good, and we get to you, my people, and you are very good. I want you out of the Egyptian mind frame that your value is in these bricks. Your value is in these times of rest with me. Let me repeat that for you. Your value is not in these bricks that you make. Your value is in the rest that I want you to take, that I've hidden in the Moad and that I've listed out in day 7 for you. Let me read day 7 for you again, starting in Genesis 2. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them. And on the 7th day God finished his work he had done, and he rested on the 7th day from all the work he had done. So God blessed the 7th day and made it holy, because on it God rested from all the work he had done. You are not the bricks that you make for me. That is not where your worth is. Your worth is in the time that you rest in me, and your worth is found in me. And I need you to find time to rest, because you've been working. Your worth is more than this brick. So what do we do with all of this? Well, as I started off in the very first point that I made, we have a God who is looking for people to trust the story. We have example after example after example after example within the Old Testament of folks who did not trust the story. Now, God ended up continuing to bless them in the ways that he saw fit, because that was his dominion over us. But we can use that example to trust this story, to live our lives in a way that is pleasing to him and that is following him. And if we trust the story, then we trust the text that we have in here. And I want to bring this to us today. We live in the Egyptian narrative. We live in our worth is in the brick, our worth is what we do. We wake up in the morning, and it's how quick can I answer these emails? How quick can I get the kids ready for the day? If I'm a teacher, how good are my students doing? If I'm a salesman, how many sales do I have? We wake up from the very moment every day, and we worry about the brick. Now, our Jewish brothers and sisters follow the evening and the morning pattern, so their days start in the evening. So Sabbath doesn't start on Saturday morning, it starts on Saturday evening, because their day starts with rest. Then they wake up and do work. Now, I'm in no way suggesting that we absolutely have to follow the Sabbath or we absolutely have to follow the evening or morning narrative, but I think we need to change our thought process on where we're putting our worth and how we're looking at ourselves. The very first thing that we do in the morning shouldn't be worrying about what I have going on for the day. It's, can I spend this time with the Word, in the Word, with the Lord? Not focusing on the bricks, but focusing on the rest in Him. Will we take our appointed time to rest and to connect with God and to move from the brick into the rest? Trust the rest. Focusing on what is good. Now, all that saying, I know I spent a lot of time in Genesis 1, and that's obviously the nature. But if you're struggling with this idea, I would implore you to read Hebrews and read the whole thing in one sitting. It's like 45 minutes, even if you're a slow reader. But spend some time and park in Hebrews 4. That specifically talks about this, bringing in a New Testament flavor to this. But I just want, like I said, what we take away from this, we're supposed to trust the story. And we were made in His image, and we are very good, and to trust in the rest. Before I go ahead and end in prayer, if you need any sort of help, I know we've still got Wes here, we've got Chris here, if they want to, if you have any things that you're going through, but I'll end on a prayer in reminding you to trust in the rest. And I'll go ahead and end this in prayer. Heavenly Father, Lord, we are thankful for this day and thankful for this time that we've carved out. Our little time away from this crazy world in which we have work and worried about kids, and not that we shouldn't worry about that, but that we don't focus on our time with you. But this is a time that you have allotted for us every single week to be with you, to be together in community. And Lord, you blessed the seventh day. For on it you rested. And may that example be something that we use to help center us and point us back to you, Lord, each and every single day. And I pray all these things in your name. Amen.